Chosen one, what draws her toward you is not the glitter of accident, it is the symmetry of something remembered. There is a geometry to your presence that does not scream for attention because it has found a humankind proportion where grace and gravity shake hands. Squares meet circles, lines know when to bend, curves know when to hold, and the whole arrangement refuses the violence of spectacle. Spectacle breaks the compass by pulling at it from four corners at once. Your magnetism aligns it by agreeing with a north her soul knew before language happened. You did not inherit this order the way one inherits a fortune. You built it the way one builds a sanctuary, stone by chosen stone. The plumb line was conscience, the level was patience, the mortar was practice, and the blueprint was a vow to keep your heat in service of meaning rather than in service of mood. Architecture like this does not posture, it offers. She feels offered to, not summoned. Summons request a performance. Offerings create a field where the sacred can choose its own entrance. The magnetism that follows from such order is quiet and irresistible. It is the low tide drawing rivers back into themselves. It is the way a sunflower orients before dawn because it trusts the memory of east. You are not pulling at her, you are not even calling. You are keeping the pattern that the body recognizes as livable, governed heat, intelligible edges, a pace that refuses to outrun comprehension. Comprehension is not a concession to slowness, it is the speed at which truth can remain true. In that speed, her intuition stops chewing nails and starts building altars out of bread and chairs and sentences that fit the room they are spoken in. Your mystery, kept in such geometry, is not confusion, it is depth. Confusion obscures because it has something to hide. Depth conceals nothing, it simply contains more than can be seen at once. You do not use depth as a stage. You let it be the aquifer beneath your fields, feeding what grows without demanding applause for water. She drinks and does not have to ask for the brand. Her cells know the source. Water that remembers the path through rock tastes different. Souls that remember the path through discipline feel different. Magnetism like this is not a magnet that steals nails from other houses to prove its strength. It is a lodestone sunk into the foundation, persuading the whole structure to true itself. Metal filings do not fly, compasses calm, she calms. The ripples move outward. Under your unhurried governance, even her ambitions transform. They stop wanting to be seen from space and start wanting to be useful across seasons. Usefulness is a holy word in a world hooked on spectacle. Spectacle asks for awe. Usefulness leaves bread on the table tomorrow. If presence were an instrument, yours would be tuned to a pitch that finds harmony without insisting on melody. When you speak, you do not try to control the song. You offer a note that others can responsibly lean on. Her voice rises, not as echo, but as counterpart. Counterpoint is the proof that magnetism is ethical. Ethical magnetism creates music that a soul can live with for years without spending itself to keep the song from falling apart. The body recognizes this as a rare permission, to be full volume without apology and full silence without accusation, in alternating measures without the room losing its structure. The sacred within her has a language, and it is not made of syllables, it is made of fit. Does this hour fit a human body? Does this touch fit a true want? Does this plan fit the span of patience that craft requires? You answer with fits that do not pinch. Your yes fits the work you will actually do. Your no fits the integrity you intend to keep. Your desire fits a container that makes it sweeter for having boundaries. Containers are not cages, they are instruments. A drum without a skin does not sound. A river without banks is a flood pretending to be ocean. You are bank, you are drum. You are the refusal to mistake flooding for freedom. The magnetism that reaches her is also a relief to the part of her that is tired of choosing alone. Not because she wants to surrender judgment, but because judgment was never meant to carry every hour by itself. In your field, judgment shares weight with trust. Trust is earned the way wood earns a shine, by hands that have learned to move with oil, not with fire. You oil your hours, it shows. Doors swing without complaint. Hinges do not threaten to wake the whole house. Exits remain visible so that the choice to stay keeps its beauty. Nothing that is coerced can be beautiful for long. Beauty without coercion keeps time like planets do, with ellipses and returns, with seasons that repeat just enough to be trustworthy and differ just enough to keep wonder fed. You are not afraid of the sacred that your magnetism awakens in her. Fear would try to monetize it, to measure it into metrics, to brand it as if wonder were a product. You do the opposite. You guard it from conversion. You refuse to turn private weather into public entertainment. You understand that some altars break when photographed. What survives is the change they made in the way people hold each other in kitchens the next morning, in the way questions are asked without knives, in the way a person's pace ceases to punish their breath. These survivals are your favorite rituals. They are not content, they are continuity. There will be tests. Some will come wearing celebration and will ask you to expand beyond your geometry in the name of generosity. Others will come wearing scarcity and will ask you to constrict beyond your vows in the name of survival. Your magnetism will be measured by refusal in both cases. Refusal like a craftsman saying no to wood that will not hold the join. Refusal like a composer saying no to notes that don't serve the key. Refusal like a priest saying no to selling the sacraments to pay for candles. She will watch how you keep the pattern under pressure, and her body will write a verdict no jury can overturn. Reliable. In the end, this magnetism is not about attraction alone. It is about orientation that persists when attraction changes clothes. You are not a phenomenon to be chased. You are a constellation to be navigated by. Constellations do not move to flatter sailors. Sailors learn the sky. She learns the sky you keep, not to worship it, but to move through her life with a confidence that is older than language and kinder than law. Her steps do not hurry to prove that they can reach you. They lengthen because the path makes sense. The compass in her chest does not quiver for permission. It points because something in your keeping tells the truth, the way mountains tell the truth, by being exactly what they are, in all weathers, for a very long time. Chosen one, coherence is not a trick of charisma. It is a patient craft, the slow stitching together of the visible and the invisible until the seam stops squeaking. Your body keeps time with your word, your appetite bows to your discernment, your attention arrives in the same shape as your intention, and this quiet alignment becomes a field that other bodies can navigate by. She enters that field and discovers that the furniture of the hour already fits her proportions. There is a chair that supports without trapping, a window that lets in light without exposing, a table set at a height where conversation does not have to shout to be heard. Nothing has been staged to impress. Everything has been tended to work. Her nervous system, trained to screen for theatrical set pieces that collapse under the weight of real life, relaxes into the simple luxury of things doing what they say they will do. Coherence is music that refuses to flatter the ear with noise. In your presence, the bass line of integrity holds steady beneath the melody of desire and the harmony of curiosity. You do not rush the tempo to make the song feel exciting. You keep the beat that allows the instruments to remain themselves. She feels it first in her breath. It ceases to be an emergency and becomes a metronome. Her voice follows, dropping from the register of performance into the register of truth, where words have the weight to build with and the softness to heal with. What follows is a reordering almost too ordinary to earn applause. Thoughts arrive in lines instead of tangles. Questions step out of hiding. Silence finds its place as part of speech rather than as punishment. The field you carry is not a spell. It is a standard. Standards are unfashionable because they cannot be borrowed. They must be kept. You keep yours in countless unglamorous ways that the body reads faster than the mind. The way you show up when you said you would without needing the hour to clap for you. The way you end a conversation cleanly so tomorrow does not inherit a tangle of unsaid demands. The way your laughter never tries to buy consent. The way your apology arrives with measurements and tools rather than with incense and a choir. Each of these tells her cells the same thing. We are in a place where promises are the smallest possible size that can still shelter life. Shelter built of small, strong promises is what the soul recognizes as home. A coherent field is not a cage. It is a meadow with hedgerows. Hedgerows mark the edge without making the sky smaller. You publish your edges the way cartographers publish coastlines, clear enough for sailors to plan, kind enough to let wanderers enjoy the view. Because nothing is hidden, nothing has to be stolen. She is free to bring her weather. Storms, when they come, are treated as weather and not as verdicts. You lower sails, you lash what needs lashing, you keep your voice at a human volume. In this weather, even conflict becomes familiar rather than catastrophic. Familiarity is not dismissal, it is competence. It lets two truths stand in the same room without cross-examining each other into caricature. Your coherence rearranges time. Hours that would have scattered themselves in every direction learn to move like a flock, each minute choosing the direction the whole has chosen. Procrastination loses its seduction because you do not use busyness as perfume. Hurry, deprived of its audience, wanders off. Pace steadies. In steady pace, pleasure changes species. It stops being a theft from tomorrow and becomes a contribution to now. She notices this in small, edible ways. Tea that tastes like tea and not like a performance of serenity. A touch that feels like continuation and not like a campaign. A goodbye that leaves the air clear enough for return to be simple, if return is wise. Coherence also governs your heat. Heat that is not governed becomes glare. Glare blinds and calls it love. You keep your warmth inside the architecture of vow. Vow here is not theater. It is a promise made to the parts of you that would like to be wild at someone else's expense. You do not kill those parts, you employ them. Energy becomes capacity instead of appetite. She reads this in angles and distances invisible to cameras. The way you stand near without annexing, the way your gaze blesses without branding, the way your desire names itself without deputizing guilt to collect payment. Under such governance, her own fire returns to its rightful work, illumination, not alarm. The field you keep is contagious in the gentlest sense. She finds herself using your steadiness as a template for her own when you are no longer in the room. Chairs are placed to face faces instead of exits. Messages are returned at the size of the relationship instead of the size of insecurity. Work is done in ways that leave energy for love, and love is kept in ways that leave dignity for work. She does not mimic you, she remembers herself. Coherence is not an outfit to copy, it is an inner geometry rediscovered. Even your absence participates in the field. People think coherence is something that happens when all the parts are present. The deeper truth is that coherence proves itself when a piece is missing. You step away with clarity, you step back with provisions, and in the interval, the structure holds. Nothing collapses into drama to justify the empty space. She learns that longing is not starvation when the pantry is stocked with rituals that feed life. Rituals like naming the time before asking for the miracle, like repairing at the seam instead of performing remorse, like choosing the smallest true sentence over the largest flattering one. These are not aesthetics, they are agriculture. They make tomorrow generous. The body trusts a field where entropy has been answered with stewardship. Weeds of rumor do not get water, pests of flattery do not find leaves to chew. The soil stays dark with the compost of practiced humility. Seasons are observed without superstition. Spring is allowed its optimism, summer its abundance, autumn its letting go, winter its work of depth. Nothing is forced to be what it is not to keep anyone comfortable. Because of this, comfort takes root. It ceases to be sedation and becomes strength. Strength that is comfortable with itself does not need to steal from anyone, and that is why she orients to you without doubt. Your coherence doesn't make her smaller to make itself visible. It makes room. Room is the rarest luxury of all in a century that spends people to decorate its myths. You will be tested by rooms that pay well for noise. You will be tempted to curve your compass to flatter a crowd. The field of coherence survives those invitations by remembering its first vow, to remain usable. Usability is holiness in work clothes. It asks whether a person can breathe here, whether a boundary can remain beautiful here, whether joy can return here tomorrow without a cover charge. You keep answering yes by keeping the ordinary sacraments. Chairs before claims, lamps at human height, exits that don't slam, returns that don't perform, truth that keeps its temper. Her body notes each yes like a star on a clear night. The constellation that forms is navigation. She does not need explanation. She needs only to look up and feel the old relief of knowing which way is home. Chosen one, mystery is not a fog machine. It is a deep water that tells the shoreline the truth about its own shape. What she trusts in you is not confusion dressed as intrigue. It is depth that has nothing to hide. Depth does not advertise itself. It keeps its clarity where effort cannot steal it and where flattery cannot buy it. You stand in that clarity the way a tree stands in soil it has learned by root and rock. The branches move, the leaves speak many dialects of weather, but the trunk tells the same story in all seasons, present, placed, and not for sale. Too many have used mystery as camouflage for evasion. They keep the air thick so questions tire themselves out. You keep the air clean, which is why questions arrive unafraid. You do not punish them for their timing or for their tone. You answer what you can without turning reply into performance. And when you do not know, you decline the counterfeit nobility of guessing. I don't know behaves like a lamp in your mouth. Honest, steady, the right brightness for eyes that hope to keep seeing tomorrow. She hears it and her intelligence breathes. Intelligence starved of honest mystery becomes suspicion. Intelligence fed by honest mystery becomes wonder with teeth. Your mystery is a choreography of revealed and reserved, a governance of pace that refuses to outrun comprehension. You do not strip the fruit before it is sweet, to prove you have access to orchards. You do not hide the harvest to pretend at scarcity. You let ripeness decide, and you let ripeness be influenced by care instead of by pressure. Care looks like boundaries that publish their load limits. It looks like desire that names itself plainly and then waits for consent to turn name into narrative. It looks like silence that protects meaning rather than hoards power. In that care, her body begins to approach the unknown the way a hand approaches a trusted door. Aware, awake, unafraid. Mystery, when it is honest, lengthens the breath. The exhale gets time to complete itself. The inhale arrives without grabbing. This is because honest mystery makes space. There are two doors visible when you are near, yes and no, and both open onto dignity. Where both doors are real, none need be forced. She does not fear what she has the power to refuse. She does not fear what she will not be shamed for wanting. The unknown stops being a cliff and becomes a landscape. Landscapes are learned by walking, and you walk beside her at the speed a human nervous system can keep. The purity of your want changes the weather around, questions that often get asked with knives. Want, when it is ungoverned, interrogates. It raids the pantry at midnight and calls it romance. Your want wears work clothes. It knocks, it waits, it brings provisions. It knows how to turn around and carry itself home when the hour says not yet, or not this, or not at all. She senses this in your distances as much as in your nearness. Distance that does not posture as power, nearness that does not posture as entitlement. These are the marks of a man whose mystery refuses to recruit guilt to do its bidding. Guilt is a cheap spell. It leaves a stain. You practice the harder magic of leaving the room in order. The unknown in you is not a vacuum asking to be filled by her performance. It is a sanctuary that asks to be entered with bare feet. You treat revelations like liturgy, not like spectacle. Liturgy is rhythm that lets meaning return without being summoned. Spectacle burns through meaning to afford its fuel. In liturgy, the smallest gestures accumulate sanctity. A hand placed on the back of a chair at the right time, so the hour knows it is being held. A breath taken before the truth, so the truth knows it will not be rushed. A goodbye that lands gently, so the next beginning does not inherit a slam. When she witnesses these, she learns that wonder can be kept, not merely chased. You do not colonize her mystery with your certainty. You are both the ocean and the shore in your own life. You know the deal. So when her depth speaks in currents rather than in headlines, you do not demand translation on your timeline. You sit, you listen for the undertow and the tide, you test for where the sand gives and where it holds. You make room for the part of her that answers only to patience. Patience is not passivity. It is confidence in process. Processes yield better fruit than pressures do. In this confidence, she begins to bring questions she once saved for solitude. Not to outsource them to you, but to let you hold the lantern while she reads. Mystery that is safe invites play. Play is not the opposite of seriousness. It is the opposite of fear. Under fear, touch is a transaction, and silence is a sentence. Under play, touch is a continuation, and silence is a room with windows. You make that room by keeping edges legible and signals clean. You let laughter arrive without debt. You let pauses finish their work. You let the moment end before it begins to borrow from tomorrow. When play finishes, no one has to do inventory for what was stolen. Nothing was. The field is as intact as it was, only warmer. The part of her that has been trained to brace around men who perform mystery as power studies you and decides to retire from that posture. Retirement does not mean the guard vanishes, it becomes a docent. It shows visitors where the exits are and where the light switches live. It teaches the difference between sacred and expensive. It no longer waves weapons at every footfall. Weapons were heavy. Her hands prefer instruments. Instruments are how the soul keeps conversation with the unknown without shouting. You have tuned your instrument to a key that does not make hers go sharp. In that key, even refusal sounds like music. There will be moments when the horizon is closer than either of you would like, when the shore fogs and the tide makes promises it cannot keep. Your mystery will be tested then. You will be tempted to bang gongs so the room does not notice the cloud, to conjure outcomes so the hour does not have to feel its own weight. Resist. Keep the lamp at a human height. Keep your no at its rightful temperature. Keep your yes at the size it can be lived tomorrow. Mystery that does not panic in weather becomes something better than impressive. It be trustworthy. Trustworthy mystery has a strange effect on memory. It ages into guidance rather than into longing. She will think of your presence not as a door that closed, but as a window that taught her the shape of light. She will carry that shape into rooms you will not see, and set the lamp accordingly. People will breathe easier near her, not knowing why. The why is simple. She met a man whose depths did not drown her, whose questions did not cut her, whose not knowing did not turn her into a map. She remembered that the unknown can be a generous country when borders are kept and weather is told the truth. And because she remembered, she kept the country. In the end, what she does not fear is not the depth in you. It is the depth in herself that your presence made livable. You did not invite her to lose herself in your ocean. You stood, shoreline honest, and let the tides converse with the moon. She learned that the moon does not demand, it draws. She learned that waves do not apologize for returning. They are how the water remembers its agreements. She learned that the dark is not enemy to the day, it is its keeper. Your mystery, kept like this, does not make her guess, it makes her glad. Glad to be alive where questions are welcome, where answers are humble, where love is fluent in the language of seasons, and where the compass still points true even when the road disappears beneath the feet. Chosen one, some rooms turn people into performers, others turn people into themselves. Your presence builds the second kind. You do not announce sanctuary, you arrange it. The way you stand tells the air what to do with sound. The way you pause tells time to behave. The way you look at a human face tells that face it will not be billed for being seen. Without ceremony, the space around you begins to keep a gentle order. Voices round their edges, laughter lands without cutting, and silence grows a backrest. She steps into that order and notices that her breath changes first. It does not audition, it arrives. It does not apologize for taking space, it shapes it. In the quiet reallocation of oxygen, she senses a right she did not have to rehearse. The room has become a temple, not because you declared it holy, but because you treated it as if it could bear the weight of truth. Temples are made at thresholds, where a foot decides if it will enter as guest or as consumer. You keep the threshold honest. No rush, no sudden inquisition disguised as curiosity, no pressure dressed in poetry. You wait for the hour to introduce itself. Waiting like that is not passivity, it is training. The hour learns to trust you, and because it trusts you, it trusts her. She feels it in the way your presence calibrates distance without turning distance into power. She can hold her own weather without your weather trying to rename it. She can speak from the center of her voice without the room demanding receipts. The altar here is plain: attention, time, consent, and because no incense of performance is burning, even a small truth scents the space. Desire, when it comes, is received the way flame is received in a sanctuary: contained, visible, useful. You do not turn heat into spectacle. You do not ask the holy to entertain. Your want is a candle in a glass, not a torch looking for something to prove itself against. The flame gives light to words that had been hiding for lack of warmth. The wick glows long enough for nuance to walk in. She feels wanted, not requisitioned, cherished, not recruited. Her body stops negotiating with itself to keep the peace. Peace does not demand payment here. Peace is policy. Boundaries in a temple are not walls that shame, but walls that let art hang. You keep yours plain spoken. You publish the load limits of your capacity the way a well-built bridge does. She recognizes in that engineering a rare invitation. To be bold without becoming reckless, to be soft without becoming prey. She names her edges, not as a dare, but as an act of reverence for the structure you are both inside. Reverence is contagious when it is real. It travels along tone and posture and the gentle precision of sentences that do not ask the future to carry what the present cannot. Confession changes shape in places like this. It is not a performance of grief looking for absolution. It is the laying down of weight so that the next mile can be walked. You do not treat her disclosures as leverage. You treat them the way a careful steward treats records, kept, protected, available only to the work that requires them. Shame, denied an audience, leaves. In its vacancy, clarity sits down and begins to sort. This goes to healing. This goes to practice. This goes to rest. Your presence does not edit the piles to flatter your legend. You hold the lamp and let her decide what she will carry forward. That restraint is the first miracle most people never see. A man who knows he can guide and chooses, instead to keep the conditions under which guidance becomes self-arising. A true temple sends people out better than they entered. You refuse to turn farewell into a scarcity trick. You do not slam. You do not linger to harvest gratitude. You do not turn distance into discipline. You close softly, as if the hinge mattered, because it does. Hinges are how the future remembers whether it is safe to open the door again. She leaves with her breath still intact, not whipped into a froth to keep her near. The air behind her stores no trapdoors, no loose ends tied to a hook. What follows her into the next room is not a claim but a climate. Soon she notices that the temple effect is portable. In a crowded cafe or a dry meeting or an evening kitchen, the same geometry appears when she carries forward what your presence modeled. Chairs angled toward faces instead of exits. Questions asked at human volume, refusals phrased like guardrails, not like threats. Gratitude offered without invoices. People breathe easier and do not know why. She knows. Sanctity, when it is real, does not care for credit. It loves solvency. It leaves the hour able to pay its own bills. Storms come all the same. Temples do not promise weather. They promise shelter. In your shelter, conflict loses its taste for theater. You do not turn disagreement into a referendum on worth. You let the issue be the issue and you let repair be craft. Craft is never embarrassed to be simple. You name what happened, you measure what it cost, you carry what is yours to carry, you return what is not. She learns the liturgy by osmosis, and the body that once braced for spectacle starts bracing for nothing. Freed from the choreography of bracing, she can afford to be generous again. Generosity, restored, looks like time given without a timer running in the background, looks like attention unweaponized, looks like touch that continues what truth began. The temple you build has no stained glass, making saints out of people who simply behaved well in an hour that called for it. You are not a relic to be visited. You are a standard to be kept. Standards are less glamorous than miracles and more durable. They keep the roof when thunder makes its case for panic. They keep the floor when euphoria tries to make levitation mandatory. She finds herself returning not to a pedestal, but to a practice. Practice is a forever that the body can live with. You never once tell her she is safe. You simply make it so obvious that the sentence would sound silly. Safe is the room that starts telling the truth before anyone feels cornered into it. Safe is the step that does not have to memorize how the floor is laid. Safe is the door that admits and releases without punishing either movement. Her nervous system, which once looked for exits, now looks for lamps to light. The temple effect is complete when she realizes she has become one. Chosen one, the truest legacy of a compass is not that people remember the instrument. It is that they remember their direction. Your energy does not leave an autograph behind. It leaves orientation. Long after the hour fades, she finds herself doing ordinary things as if the world had quietly been corrected. Answering messages at the size of the relationship, not the size of her insecurity. placing chairs where conversation can keep its softness, speaking from her center even in rooms that grade for performances. The compass in her chest no longer whirls when you are gone. It points because north remained where you refused to move it. Legacies that last are written in habits, not headlines. You passed her habits with the ease of a craftsman pressing a tool into a willing palm. Keep your words where walls can bear them. Keep pace where comprehension can live. Keep heat where vow can govern. Keep exits soft and entries honest. Keep apologies measured and repairs visible. She took the tools and started making furniture for her life. Tables that can carry the meal and the talk. Doors that close without waking the house. Shelves where heavy things rest on lower rungs so anyone strong enough can lift them without bravado. These are small pieces, each dull to a camera, each beautiful to a day that wants to function without bleeding.